Tonight, we pay quiet attention to a simple, unsettling trick. If someone keeps telling you your feelings are wrong, your memory is bad, and your reactions are dramatic, your mind begins to doubt itself. The paradox is that the more you argue, the more proof the manipulator claims to have that you're overreacting. The cycle works by steady denial, reframing, and isolation until you pre-edit your thoughts to avoid conflict. Try a thought experiment. Imagine marking small facts in a private note. What was said when, in what tone? Reality stops feeling foggy when it has anchors. Resolution here is not winning a debate, it's stepping out of the debate entirely. Name the tactic, set boundaries, and verify with neutral sources. Why it matters. A person who distrusts their own mind is easy to control, and a person who trusts it can walk away quietly. Ask yourself, if you needed a transcript of the last argument to feel sane, what does that say about the dynamic? As you drift, let a calm rule settle in. Your perception is a compass, not a verdict. When someone keeps bending the needle, the map is not the problem. On the next level, we move from bending reality to rewriting identity. How step-by-step conditioning turns resistance into belief. Brainwashing. Picture influence as a ladder: isolation, destabilization, indoctrination, reinforcement. No single rung looks dramatic. Together they change the view. The paradox: brainwashing doesn't always force you to change. It makes you want to. Start with a thought experiment. Remove outside inputs for a week and let one voice claim the world. Your confidence in that voice grows, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. Practical resolution lives in diversified inputs. Read across lines, test claims against lived facts, keep one friend who disagrees with you and is still kind. Why it matters. Narrow information shrinks imagination, and a shrunken imagination can't picture exit doors. Ask yourself, when did I last change my mind because of evidence, not pressure? If the answer feels distant, widen the window. Breathe. You are not late. The mind rebalances when it sees more sky. Next, we study the sugar rush that starts many traps. Affection, so bright it blinds. Love bombing. It begins like a dream. Constant attention, intense confessions. I've never felt this way. The paradox is that it looks like confidence, but hides control. The brain maps the flood of praise to safety. When it's withdrawn, you chase the feeling, not the person. Thought experiment. Imagine the same words delivered slowly over months. Do they feel more credible? Resolution is pacing. Healthy bonds breathe. Set minimums. Time between milestones. Private space kept yours. A willingness to hear no without punishment. Why it matters. Intermittent reward is the engine of addiction. When affection has a switch, the switch owns you. Ask, do I feel calmer after contact or more anxious? Calm bonds build, anxious bonds bind. If the answer stings, that's clarity arriving. On the next level, the praise flips to pressure. Guilt becomes a leash that looks like love. Guilt and shame. Hooks. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says I am something wrong. A manipulator nudges you from the first into the second because identities are heavier than events. Thought experiment. Switch the sentence "you forgot me" to "you didn't call me." Notice how one attacks the self and the other describes a moment. Resolution. Rewrite accusations as facts, then check the facts. Keep a short script. I'm open to feedback, not to character verdicts. Why it matters. When your worth is on trial, you'll plead to anything to make the court adjourn. Ask, who benefits when I feel small? If it's always the same person or group, the pattern is the proof. Sleep thought, you are allowed to be imperfect without being indebted. Next, we examine the quiet cage built from kindness, dependence that feels like protection. Engineered dependence. The trick is simple. Remove alternatives, then offer yourself as the only solution. Friends reframed as threats, options labeled unsafe, money controlled for your own good. Paradox. You feel grateful while shrinking. Thought experiment. Draw a map with 3 circles: self, supports, source. If all arrows point to one source, the map is a funnel. Resolution starts with micro-independence. Your own passwords, your own calendar, your own cash for 3 ordinary days. Why it matters. Power loves bottlenecks. Redundancy is freedom. More than one way to get help, more than one way to get home. Ask, if I made a quiet choice no one approved, could I still meet my needs? If not, you've found the leverage point. Tomorrow's lesson explores what happens when effort stops because hope learned not to show up. Learned helplessness. Imagine pushing on a door that never opens. Eventually, you stop trying, even when the lock is removed. The nervous system memorizes futility. Paradox. The body isn't lazy. It conserves pain. Thought experiment. List 2 actions that failed before. Now design the smallest, safest version of each. So small failure can't hurt. Try 1. Stop before exhaustion. Resolution is graded exposure to possibility. Track wins, not perfect outcomes. I asked. I left. I rested. Why it matters. The belief nothing works becomes a full-time job that pays in numbness. Ask. What would a 5-minute attempt look like? Freedom often returns in minutes, not miracle. In the next level, we see how helplessness can flip to attachment. The mind bonds with the hand that both feeds and frightens. Stockholm patterns. When safety and threat wear the same face, the brain clings to any dental moment as proof that hope lives there. Paradox. The rare kindness outweighs common harm. It feels rational inside the storm. Thought experiment. Write 2 columns, care and cost. If the care column lists words and the cost column lists your daily life, the balance is visible. Resolution is decoupling. Identify safe supports outside the bond, practice neutrality inside it, and let outsiders hold the timeline. Why it matters. Survival strategies are brilliant in danger and expensive in peace. Ask, if my best friend described my situation, what advice would I give them? Borrow your own wisdom. Next, we look at memory itself, how past can be edited until you feel grateful for the pain that hurt you. Memory rewrites. Memory is not a recording, it's a story reassembled on demand. Suggestion, repetition, and social agreement tilt the edits. Paradox. Recalling a moment can make it less accurate and more convincing at the same time. Thought experiment. Hold a small event in mind, then list only what a camera would have captured, no motives, no mind reading. Compare that list to the story you usually tell. Resolution is externalization. Time-stamped notes, messages saved, neutral witnesses, why it matters. If someone can swap your past, they can steer your future. Decisions grow from remembered soil. Ask, who keeps insisting on the real version that always favors them? Ownership of the archive is ownership of the art. Next, we slow our breath around the loudest lever in groups and markets. Fear, fear-mongering. Fear narrows attention, and narrow attention obeys. The tactic is predictable. Announce a looming danger. Offer the only remedy. Punish questions as reckless. Paradox. Anxiety feels like vigilance, but it often blinds. Thought experiment. For any urgent claim, write 3 lines. What's the risk? What's the base rate? What's my real timeline? Resolution. Replace countdowns with calendars. If it cannot survive a night's sleep and a second source, it does not deserve your nervous system. Why it matters. A steady heart makes steady choices. A scared heart makes someone else's. Ask, is this warning trying to inform me or herd me? Herding always demands speed and sameness. Next level, we follow fear's sibling obligation when love becomes a contract you never signed. Emotional blackmail. The script is familiar. If you loved me, you would. After all I've done, don't make me do something drastic. Paradox. It sounds like intimacy, but trades only in leverage. Thought experiment. Flip the sentence from, if you loved me, to if I loved you. Who is responsible for whose feelings now? Resolution is clear language and quiet consequence. I won't choose under threat. When you can ask without one, I'm open. Then keep the boundary. Why it matters. Love, measured by obedience, stops being love and starts being management. Ask, do requests expand my life or shrink it? Real care creates room. As we coast towards sleep, let a simple habit form. Notice the tactic, name it softly, step sideways. On the next level, we'll explore comparison as a weapon, triangles, jealousy, and the illusion of being replaceable. Triangulation. Comparison turns connection into competition. A manipulator introduces a third figure and docks a co-worker, a stranger, to stir doubt, jealousy, and urgency. Paradox. You work harder to be chosen than to be cherished. Thought experiment. Picture a quiet room with two chairs facing one another. Now add a mirror behind you both, reflecting someone else. Notice how your focus drifts from truth to scoreboard. Resolution. Convert triangles back to lines. Say, if there's a concern, bring it to me directly. I won't compete for basic respect. Refuse to analyze rivals. Assess the relationship. Why it matters. Jealousy narrows your awareness to the manipulator's approval, which makes neglect feel like suspense instead of data. Ask, after contact, do I feel steadier or do I scan for signs I'm winning? If it's the scan, you're being gamified. Sleep thought. Genuine bonds don't require auditions. If someone needs an audience to value you, they don't. Next, we'll meet the crowd's version of the same trick, when 1,000 eyes become one voice, and shame is the leash. Public shaming. Crowds can turn discomfort into doctrine. Humiliation weaponizes our primal fear of exile, making silence feel safer than integrity. Paradox. Shame claims to correct you while training obedience in everyone. Watch thought experiment. Imagine your mistake as a pebble in your palm. Now picture it projected on a stadium screen. Did the pebble grow or just the stage? Resolution. Separate accountability from spectacle. Own what's yours in small rooms with honest people and decline the parade. Practice the sentence, I'm correcting this privately, not performing it. Why it matters. Public humiliation freezes learning. Private responsibility thaw it. Ask, is the goal repair or display? Repair is specific, time-bound, and doable. Display is endless. Sleep thought. Your worth is not public domain. On the next level, the cycle spins the other way. After the push away comes the pull back. Hoovering. Just when you step out, the vacuum hums. Apologies, nostalgia, crises, proclamations of change. Paradox. The promise is tailored to your hope, not to their habits. Thought experiment. Write 2 timelines. What they say will be different, and what was different last time. Compare the blank spaces. Resolution. Require proof before proximity. Consistent behavior for 8 quiet weeks, then we talk. No debate, no drama, no door cracked for midnight exceptions. Why it matters. Intermittent relief glues you to pain more tightly than constant pain ever could. Ask, am I missing this person or the version I built from 3 golden hours? Sleep thought. Love without safety is weather. Love with safety is shelter. Next, we examine why we double down even when the map is wrong. Cognitive dissonance. Holding clashing truths hurts, so the mind relieves pressure by editing one away, often the one that would demand change. Paradox. The more you invest, the more facts you collect to defend the investment. Thought experiment. List your last 3 costly commitments. For each, write a sentence that would force you to leave. Now notice which sentence you keep softening. Resolution. Pre-commit to criteria. If X happens twice, I exit. Put it somewhere you can't negotiate with at 2 a.m. Why it matters. Pain wants a narrative. Narratives want continuation. Ask, am I defending this because it works, or because I worked so hard? Sleep thought. Sunk cost is not a compass. Next, we'll watch how attention itself can be hacked, so reality seems to repeat on command. Frequency illusion. Learn a new word and it's suddenly everywhere. That's not fate, it's your filter tuned. Paradox. Noticing feels like proof. Thought experiment. Pick a neutral symbol, a blue bicycle, and count how often you see it tomorrow. Notice the surge. Resolution. Pair I'm seeing it more with because I'm primed. When narratives claim ubiquity, everyone's saying it's everywhere. Ask for numbers, not vibes. Why it matters. If someone can steer what you notice, they can steer what you normalize. Ask, did prevalence rise, or did sensitivity rise? Sleep thought. Attention is a highlighter, not a census. Next, we study the friendly twin that builds instant trust by copying your reflection, mirroring and matching, subtle mimicry, posture, cadence, energy signals. We're alike. Paradox, rapport, can be real or rented. Thought experiment. Change one small thing mid-conversation, cross the other leg, lower your voice, pause longer. Do they follow? Resolution. Reward substance, not synchronicity. Slow the pace. Ask for examples. Change context. Let's write this down. Mirroring breaks on paper. Why it matters. Being seen is nourishing. Being simulated is numbing. Ask. Do I trust the alignment because our values match or because our rhythms do? Sleep thought. Warmth plus difference is authenticity. Warmth without difference can be theater. Next, the gentle nudge becomes a leash. First they match, then they lead. Pacing and leading. The rhythm is simple. Agree with your feelings. You're tired, unheard. Then steer your choices. So sign here. Paradox. Validation disarms skepticism even when direction is wrong. Thought experiment. Underline declarations that mirror you versus the ones that move you. Which group contains the verbs? Resolution. Separate empathy from agenda. Say, thanks for reflecting me. Before we decide, show your data. If the empathy vanishes when you ask for evidence, it was bait. Why it matters. The fastest way to steer a mind is to stand where it already is. Ask, after being understood, do I feel freer to choose or funneled? Sleep thought. Agreement is a door, not a tunnel. Next, we explore a toolkit that wraps language around reflex. NLP slides, embedded commands, anchoring phrases, patterned mirroring, tools that can support healing or sell you your own doubt. Paradox, suggestions feel like ideas you had yourself. Thought experiment. Read the sentence, you might begin to relax now, and notice your exhale. Words can pull levers. Resolution, label hypnotic frames aloud. That's a suggestion, not a fact. Ask for plain language and concrete terms. Anchor yourself, feet on floor, breath steady, eyes on written points. Why? It matters. Trance isn't just a stage act, it's what happens when attention narrows and trust broadens. Ask, is this conversation making me clearer or just more compliant? Sleep thought, language can hug or herd. Listen for the fence. Next, we dim the room further. Messages you don't quite see, still moving you. Subliminal nudges, half-heard tones, near-invisible flashes, repeated motifs. Most illegal, many are effective. Paradox. The unseen still accumulates. Thought experiment. Recall a brand you've never bought, but can hum the jingle of that's rent-free real estate in your head. Resolution. Raise thresholds. Reduce autoplay. Pause at braking. Mute music when evaluating and read with images hidden. Make choices in quiet, not in the glow. Why it matters. Attention is a garden. Unattended plots get planted for you. Ask, did I want this, or did I just see it a lot? Sleep thought. Silence is a filter you control. Tomorrow we'll meet the louder cousin, the primer that sets your mood before you choose. Priming effects. A word, a color, a soundtrack. All tilt interpretations. Paradox. Context edits judgment while feeling like neutrality. Thought experiment. Imagine the word danger above a photo of a crowd. Now replace it with celebration. Same pixels, different pulse, resolution. Rename the frame before reacting. I am primed for X. Let me test Y. Build rituals that reset. Cold water, 10 slow breaths. Read the numbers first, then the adjectives. Why it matters. Priming makes first impressions look like facts. Ask, who picked the frame I'm peering through? Sleep thought, choose your lens, or someone will lend you theirs. Next time we'll examine questions that carry answers in their pockets and how to empty those pockets gently. Suggestive language and hypnosis. Some questions carry answers in their pockets. You're starting to relax now, aren't you? Blends an observation with a command. Hypnosis here doesn't need a swinging watch. It needs narrowed attention, rhythmic speech, and permission. Paradox. The more a phrase validates you, the more easily it can lead you. Resolution. Label suggestions out loud. That's a suggestion, not a fact. Convert soft imperatives into checkable claims. Who, what, by when, how measured. Slow cadence breaks trance. Write things down. Change posture. Sip water. Look at a distant point. Ask for rephrasing. State the request without mood words or presuppositions. Beware of double binds. Two options, same outcome, and tag questions, don't you, that nudge acquiescence. Why it matters. When language sets the rails, choices feel like scenery. A gentle voice can shuttle you past your own exit if you never pull the cord. Ask. After this conversation, did I gain clarity or compliance? Can I restate the proposal in plain neutral terms without losing its meaning? If not, the meaning lived in the spell. Sleep, thought, words or weather inside the skull. You may enjoy the breeze without letting it move your feet. Field practice. Notice 3 phrases this week that try to decide for you. Obviously, as you already know, everyone agrees. Replace each with maybe, then test the evidence. Return the locus of control to your body. Feel the soles of your feet. Name 5 objects you see. Lengthen the exhale. Trance loosens when the present gets specific. Manufactured urgency. A countdown timer hijacks the nervous system. Scarcity plus speed equals surrender. Paradox. Quick action feels competent while skipping the very step where competence lives. Verification. Thought experiment. Rehearse a choice with a 5-minute clock. Feel your chest tighten. Options narrow. Now picture the same choice given one night and 2 sources. Which version contains your values? Resolution. Detach time from threat. Legitimate opportunities survive sunlight. Install a cooling-off clause for purchases, offers and ultimatums. Sleep first. Decide later. Convert timers into calendars. Email me the terms. I'll reply by 10 hour tomorrow. Ask for the post-deadline scenario in writing. Bad actors hate paper. Name the tactic. A deadline doesn't change due diligence. If they escalate, the clock was the product. Ask, is the deadline external and real? Ticket inventory, filing date, or internal and manipulative? Manner needs an answer now. What would a wise person I respect do with 24 hours? I can match them. Sleep thought. The future you are protecting has a voice. It speaks slowly. Your present self can give it the microphone. Field practice. Create defaults that make patience easy. Disable one-click checkout. Turn off autoplay and push alerts. Write a 1-paragraph decision brief before saying yes. Most impulsive traps cannot survive a paragraph. Remember, if haste is essential, the requester can share verifiable proof fast. Contracts, inventory logs, independent references. Speed with transparency is service. Speed without it is theater. Foot in the door. Compliance loves momentum. First a sticker in the window, then a yard sign, then your Saturday afternoons. Paradox. We protect our self-image as helpful by becoming more helpful than healthy. Thought experiment. Recall the last small favor that multiplied. What value did it borrow? Kindness, loyalty, competence. Now imagine you had said yes once and wrote the boundary on a card. How much friction would that card have added to the second ask? Resolution. Pre-name scope. Yes to X, no to Y. Revisit at Z. Paste ceilings on frequency, time, and money, and automate your default no while you think, I'll consider and reply tomorrow. Keep scripts handy. I can help for 15 minutes. I'll do it this time. Not as a pattern. I'm not available for that role. Track favors in a small ledger to keep memory honest and obligation in proportion. Why it matters. Identity consistency. I'm the kind person can be steered into an unending job. People who never rest from giving eventually give up on themselves. Sleep thought. You don't owe yesterday's miniature promise today's entire energy. Field practice. Before agreeing, name your exit. I'll stop at 30 minutes. Your limit, twice this month, and your metric only if it doesn't push sleep. Put them in the calendar as alarms. Remember, a clear no to scope creep preserves your future yes for what truly matters. Door in the face. Start with an outrageous ask. Retreat to the real goal. Harvest relief as agreement. Paradox. We confuse their concession with our obligation to reciprocate. Thought experiment. A negotiator proposes a 60% pay cut, then relents to 10%. Is 10% wise or merely smaller? Now imagine receiving 10% as the first and only offer. Notice how your spine, not your fear, answers. Resolution. Remove anchors before deciding. Write your independent target in advance and keep it visible. Evaluate each proposal against criteria, not against the last proposal. Delay gratitude until fairness is verified. Use language that breaks the reciprocity spell. I appreciate the revision. I still need alignment with market and scope. If pressured to meet halfway, reply, let's meet where the data lives. Why it matters. Relief is a powerful drug. When you just escape terrible, tolerable feels like a gift, but tolerable can still be wrong, unsafe, or exploitative. Ask, am I thanking them for stepping back from a cliff they built? What do salary surveys, contracts, or policies say absent the theatrics? Would I advise a friend to accept this? Sleep, thought. Smaller than unreasonable is not the same as reasonable. Field practice before big conversations, gather third-party benchmarks, decide your floor ceiling, and pre-write 3 calm sentences you'll read if emotions spike. Scripts beat adrenaline. If the other side opens with spectacle, dramatic size, deadlines, inflated starting points, name the theater, let's pause theatrics and trade documents. De-escalation is a boundary. It restores the room to numbers, not nerves. And if they won't return to documents, the only wise concession is your exit. Lowballing. You agree at a sweet number, add-ons bloom later. The commitment is emotional now. Backing out feels like losing face, time, and hope. Paradox. Sunk cost to cosplays as loyalty. Thought experiment. Sign for a deal at 20 minutes later. It's 23 with mandatory fees. If a stranger offered 23 at the start, would you accept? If not, the only thing that changed is attachment. Resolution. Install walkaway clauses. Any material change voids my consent. Put it in writing. Bring a witness. Insist all costs be itemized and frozen before commitment. Refuse manager approvals that show up after signatures. If they say it's standard, reply, then it's easy to put in the contract. Practice pausing, step outside, call a third party, read the numbers out loud until the spell of momentum breaks. Why it matters. Lowballing doesn't just drain wallets. It trains you to tolerate bait and switch everywhere. Jobs, relationships, policies. Once normalized, you'll pay with your time, your rest, and your boundaries. Ask, what precisely is fixed? What happens if the price has to change? Do I retain the right to cancel without penalty? Who benefits from speed and who benefits from transparency? Sleep thought. A fair deal stays fair in daylight. Field practice, use templates, total price, list of inclusions, change order process, cancellation rights. Pre-decide a phrase you'll say if terms shift. That's not the agreement, I decline. Then actually decline even once. Your nervous system remembers exits. It takes. Remember, pressure after commitment is a feature of the tactic, not a flaw in you. Your right to renegotiate or walk is still intact. Next, when the crowd becomes your compass, popularity dresses up as proof, and silence feels like consensus. Welcome to level 26 of 100. Bandwagon pull. Everyone's in. Numbers don't lie. Popularity borrows the costume of proof. Paradox. Social evidence is helpful for taste, disastrous for truth. Thought experiment. Stand before 2 doors, one crowded, one calm. Which holds your actual preference? Now imagine headlines shouting surging, viral, unprecedented. Ask, counts of what, over what time, compared to what baseline. Resolution. Seek dissent as data. For claims, require sources older than yesterday and wider than your bubble. Ask 3 people you respect who disagree with you to critique the idea. Count incentives. Who profits if you believe this, and how soon? Replace everyone says with a number and a method. Practice being the first to pause. You'll often be the first to see why it matters. Mobs outsource morality. When approval is the barometer, cruelty can feel like weather. The crowd's confidence is not a warranty, only an amplifier. Ask, if this were unpopular, would it still be correct? If nobody could see my stance, would I choose it? Which parts of this belief can survive a slow read and a quiet room? Sleep thought integrity is a compass that reads the same alone or in a stadium. Field practice. Diversify inputs on purpose, rotate news sources, follow credible critics, and keep a contrary notebook where you collect the best arguments against your favorite views. Train the muscle that lets you wave at the parade and still step off the street. Remember, virality is a velocity, not a validator. Speed of spread only measures how catchy something is, not how correct, kind, or safe it may be. Scarcity theater. Limited, exclusive, last chance. Words that awaken ancient alarms. Paradox. Scarcity can signal quality or orchestrate panic. The body often can't tell the difference. Thought experiment. Imagine two identical items, one labeled only two left, the other restocked weekly. Which feels more precious in your hands? Now imagine a person who withholds attention until you compete. Does the rarity prove their value or reveal their strategy? Resolution. Audit the source of scarcity. Natural, seasonal, finite materials earns respect. Manufactured or reserved for 3 minutes. Invite only forever earns questions. Create distance between stimulus and spend. One sleep cycle, one price comparison, one friend's counsel. Replace FOMO with FOBO. Fear of buying once. Ask sellers for restock schedules and refund terms. Ask people for reciprocal effort, not rationed crumbs. Why it matters. Scarcity compresses time, narrows vision, and raises the price of mistakes. A life steered by faux famine will starve in the midst of abundance. Ask, if this were plentiful, would I still want it? If this person gave freely, would I still chase them? What is the opportunity cost of saying yes right now? Sleep thought. Plenty is not loud, but it is patient. Real fit does not hide behind a velvet rope. Field practice. Keep a waiting list for yourself. When something feels urgent, park it for 24 hours. If you still want it, you'll move toward it with calm legs. Track how many last chances return in new costumes next week. Let the silliness immunize you. Remember, abundance rarely shouts. It simply remains when you return. Exploiting closure. Open loops itch. Manipulators scratch just enough to keep you leaning in. Paradox. The promise of answers can be a leash. Thought experiment. Recall the message that ended with "we need to talk," then nothing. Your mind built 1,000 endings, none restful. Now imagine someone who returns after silence with thin explanations but big emotions. Did you accept nonsense just to end the ache? Resolution. Set your own endings. When a loop is dangled, create a deadline. If I don't receive clear specifics by Friday, I'll proceed without them. Swap mystery for method. List the facts you know, the facts you need, the date you'll decide. Refuse breadcrumb revelations and hazy almost. Demand completeness or choose distance. Curiosity is not a contract. Why it matters. Ambiguous tension hijacks focus, sleep, and self-respect. People stuck in loops will pay with apologies, money, and years. Pause. Would a clear answer likely change my direction, or am I waiting for permission to do what I already know? Who benefits while I stay suspended? What decision honors my life if no new information arrives? Sleep thought. Peace is not what happens after closure. It's what you build when you stop outsourcing your endings. Field practice. Write a closure template email or text you can send to end unproductive cycles, polite, specific, and final. When rumination spikes at night, convert it to list form, then choose one small action for morning. Your brain sleeps better when tomorrow has a plan. Remember, unanswered is also an answer. You are allowed to proceed. Micro-manipulation. No orders, no threats. Just tiny tilts. A sigh, a pause, a selective omission. Paradox. Nothing is technically demanded, yet everything trends their way. Thought experiment. Picture a colleague who never asks you to stay late, only praises those who do in front of you. You choose to linger. Or the partner who raises an eyebrow at certain friends. Eventually you stop inviting them. Whose choices are those? Resolution. Tune your radar to patterns, not moments. One sigh is noise, Repeated cues are choreography. Translate vibes into words. When you praise others over time while I'm present, I feel nudged to stay. Please state requests directly. Require explicit asks and explicit thanks. Decline to respond to implied expectations. Replace mind reading with menus. Here are 3 ways I can help. Please pick one. Why? It matters. Micro pressure preserves deniability. You are left questioning yourself while your life curves toward their preferences. Over time, the slope becomes a law. Ask, what would I do if no signal had been sent? How does my behavior change in their presence versus their absence? Can I point to a sentence that asked for this? Sleep thought. Clarity is kindness to yourself. You do not owe obedience to atmospheres. Field practice. Narrate neutrally in the moment. I noticed a pause after I said no. Is there another request you'd like to make directly? Journal a week of small tilts you felt and how you answered. Patterns on paper stiffen your spine. Remember, if the expectation matters, it can survive being spoken. If it dies when named, it was never yours to carry. The Zygarnik itch. Unfinished tasks hum in the mind like neon lights. Completion flips the switch. Paradox. Tension keeps you engaged, and manipulators keep the tension. Thought experiment. Binge a show that ends every episode on a cliff. Notice how just one more steals sleep. Now imagine a boss who dangles a promotion soon, always soon. Your effort spikes. The finish line doesn't. Resolution. Close loops on purpose. Break work into micro-completions you can actually finish today. Replace cliffhangers with chapter breaks. Write down the next step before you stop, then stop when others withhold resolution to hold you. Set an external end. If criteria A and B are not met by date C, I'm pivoting to option D. Create bedtime rituals that tell the brain we're done for now. Dim lights, list tomorrow's first action, read 1 page of anything gentle. Why it matters. Open loops borrow against tomorrow's clarity. A life of dangling threads is a loom that never weaves. Ask, whose loop is this, and why is it in my hands? What would completion look like in 1 sentence? Is the tension productive or merely sticky? Sleep thought. The mind likes doors. You can close some tonight. Field practice. Keep a done list alongside your to-do. That small act refunds mental energy. When a person or platform withholds endings, provide your own archive, unsubscribe or step away until they can finish a thought. Remember, closure is a habit, not a gift. Practice it on tiny chores, then on tangled conversations. Your sleep will notice. Welcome to level 31 of 100, the Pygmalion effect. Expectations are quiet scripts that other people hand us until we mouth their lines as if they were ours. Paradox. Faith can fertilize growth, but prophecy can imprison it, especially when delivered with a sigh. Thought experiment. Recall a person who believed in you before you had proof. Notice how your performance bent toward their gaze. Now recall someone who labeled you difficult, average, or lucky. Did your behavior shrink to fit? Resolution. Separate regard from prediction. Invite standards. Reject ceilings. Convert you're not the type into show the criteria. Ask for rubrics, not vibes. Write your own expectation contract. 3 behaviors you'll practice no matter who doubts. 3 metrics you'll use to decide whether to pivot. Share it with one honest ally who reflects effort, not flattery. Why it matters. Unexamined expectations become self-fulfilling weather. Praise without specificity inflates. Criticism without path can calcify. Both can detour you from the work that would quietly prove either wrong. Ask, whose forecast am I carrying today? What would today's action look like if nobody's label applied? Which part of my identity was built to appease someone else's narrative? Sleep thought. Your future is allergic to cages dressed as compliments. You choose the weather you walk in. Forecasts are optional. Work sovereign. Field practice. When praised, ask, what exactly worked? When doubted, ask, what exactly is missing? Replace all or nothing labels with verbs. Learning, iterating, shipping. Build a proof folder of small wins, updated weekly. Let data inoculate you against both glitter and gloom. If a room consistently sees you as less than your evidence, change rooms before you change your range. Reframing failure. Failure can be a bruise or a brand. Manipulators prefer the brand. Paradox. Feedback is a map, but shame pretends to be a mirror and etches itself onto your name. Thought experiment. Remember a mistake that brought a lesson. Name the skill it purchased. Now remember a time your misstep was used to define you. Always, never, you are. Which one improved your future? Resolution. Replace verdicts with variables. Convert I failed to my plan failed under these constraints. Write postmortems with 3 columns: assumptions, actions, outcomes. Then specify what changes next time. Ask critics for operational fixes, not moral theater. What behavior would satisfy the goal? Build failure budgets, small, planned experiments where errors are cheap. Celebrate closure. Lessons captured, system updated, energy released. Refuse penalties larger than the problem. Why it matters. If failure equals identity, people volunteer for cages, quieter roles, smaller risks, apologies, systems that weaponize error, harvest obedience at the price of innovation. Your sleep needs permission to try again. Ask, who profits if I treat this as proof? I am lesser. Where is the knob I can twist tomorrow? Which part is tuition, and which part is someone selling me a story? Sleep thought falling is physics, staying down is a script. Field practice. Pre-commit to debriefs before launching. After any stumble, schedule a 15-minute lessons audit, then a 5-minute reward to close the loop. Replace embarrassing with embarrassed. One is identity, the other, temporary. Track catches, near misses you corrected, alongside crashes. When others turn your errors into essence, reply with facts and limits. That happened once. Here's what changed. Here are my results. If ridicule persists, change rooms before you change your range. The halo effect. We crown one trait and let it govern the kingdom. That is the halo effect. Attractiveness masquerades as kindness, confidence as competence, polish as proof. Paradox. Presentation helps doors open. Worship of shine locks minds shut. Thought experiment. Imagine 2 resumes. One has elegant design and elite logos, the other plain text and quiet wins. Which earns your instinctive yes? Now flip them and notice your pulse. Resolution. Decouple signal from substance. Write criteria before exposure. What must be true for trust? Score behavior, not aura. In conversations, translate charisma into claims, claims into evidence, evidence into decisions. When dazzled, add friction. Show me the process, replicate the result, reveal the baseline, rotate presenters, audit outcomes blind. Create ugly lists of excellent, unglamorous work that would otherwise go unseen. Why it matters. Halos protect abusers and penalize builders. They turn rooms into theaters where confidence is currency and care gets discounted. Without counterweights, you will sleepwalk toward whoever shines the brightest, not whoever stands the truest. Ask, what am I overvaluing because it photographs well? What am I ignoring because it whispers? Whose reputation is doing all the heavy lifting? Sleep thought. Glitter doesn't grip. Substance holds even when the lights are off, especially when no one is watching closely. Field practice. When impressed, write 3 reasons that survive without adjectives. When unimpressed, list 3 measurable outcomes you might be missing. Swap first impressions with second looks. Wait a day, then reevaluate. In hiring or friendship, sample hard moments, not highlight reels. Praise processes publicly, not just people. Build your own shine from craft, consistency, and repair. Let your work throw the light back on the work. Time constraints. A countdown steals your breath before it steals your choice. Time constraints are persuasion's accelerant. Hurry muffles doubt. Panic outruns prudence, and urgency impersonates importance. Paradox. Deadlines create focus. False deadlines manufacture obedience. Thought experiment. Picture a purchase you regret. Was there a clock, a last chance, a vanishing slot? Now picture a great decision. Did you buy yourself time? Resolution. Insert pauses on purpose. When a timer appears, create your own. I decide after one sleep cycle. Draft if urgent, then rules what qualifies as real emergency, who can declare it, how you will verify. Build a slow yes, fast no muscle for unsolicited offers. Use checklists sized for crisis. 3 questions that gate action. Is this reversible? What's the base rate? What am I ignoring because I feel rushed? Why it matters. Compressed time expands compliance. Scammers, abusers, and zealots ride clocks like cattle prods, herding people into bad bargains and brittle beliefs. Your calm is a civil right. Protect it like property. Ask, who benefits if I move before I think? If this deal survives scrutiny, why can't it revive sunrise? What would I decide if the timer were blank? Sleep thought. Urgency loves costumes. Real fires smell like smoke, not marketing. Field practice. Add delay buttons to your life. Email send undo cart cooldowns. Calendar buffers. Train allies to respect. I'll revert tomorrow. In teams, run red team drills that test the claim of urgency. Reward the person who slows a stampede. Keep a panic plan card in your wallet. Breathe, water, walk, verify. If someone insists on instant compliance, treat it as a diagnostic, not a directive. Real partners grant thinking time. The contrast principle. When you can't change reality, change the comparison. That is the contrast principle. Show something terrible first, so the merely bad seems benevolent. Paradox. Context clarifies. Manipulation weaponizes context. Thought experiment. Imagine a policy that extends hours, cuts benefits, and adds a title. Now imagine leadership first proposed something even harsher, then listened and compromised. How grateful would you feel for the softened blow? Resolution. Anchor to values, not bait. Define non-negotiables before negotiations. When options arrive, evaluate each against standards, not against each other. Add a zero option. What if we did nothing? Consider outside the frame alternatives the presenter omitted. When emotions spike, write a 1-paragraph impact memo for every choice: costs, benefits, reversibility, and who pays. Refuse to applaud pain just because a larger pain was waved in front of you. Why it matters. Contrast can smuggle harm past your guardrails. Abusers alternate cold and warm until the warm feels like mercy. Propagandists pair policies with frightening foils. Sales scripts parade luxury prices so the merely overpriced looks kind. Ask, what's being hidden by comparison? Who chose the first item and why? Would I accept option B if option A never existed? Sleep thought. Relief is not the same as right. Field practice. In meetings, request independent scoring. Rate every option against pre-written criteria. Track how your mood shifts when a decoy appears. Label the feeling contrast glow. When preparing your own proposals, list at least one outside-the-box path so you don't seduce yourself with false binaries. Build a habit of pausing after concessions to ask whether the remaining offer meets needs or merely feels gentler. Thank sincerity. Interrogate spectacle. The IKEA effect. We overprice what we assemble, even when the legs still wobble. That bias has a name. The IKEA effect. Paradox. Effort builds mastery. Effort also glues us to sunk costs. Thought experiment. Recall a project you defended long after evidence begged for a pivot. Did the hours you poured in make retreat feel like loss? Now imagine paying the same price for a version you didn't build. Would you love it as much? Resolution. Separate effort, pride from outcome value. Before you start, write an exit rule. If these metrics fail by this date, I will stop or redesign. During the work, invite outsiders to judge results blind. No backstory, no romance. After delivery, run a fresh eyes test by your future self. If you had inherited this today, what would you keep, kill, or change? Praise craftsmanship, but price outcomes. Why it matters. Manipulators make you labor for admission, so you'll mistake sunk sweat for truth. Cults demand humiliating tasks. Predatory workplaces sell ownership, while renting your life by the hour. The more you invest without equity, the more you defend the deal that starves you. Ask, if I hadn't built this, would I still choose it? What am I protecting, my ego, my time, or real value? Is devotion masking data? Sleep thought. You are not your prototype. Let usefulness decide what survives. Tonight, too, field practice, log inputs, time, money, energy, against outputs, measurable impact. Schedule quarterly portfolio pruning, where you archive, hand off, or sunset beloved but underperforming work. Celebrate pivots as craftsmanship too. The craft of stopping. If someone hands you ownership without authority or upside, name it correctly. Responsibility theater. Then renegotiate terms or walk. The decoy effect. Three options appear, but one is a ghost hired to point at another. That's the decoy effect. An inferior choice makes its neighbor look like destiny. Paradox. Variety expands freedom. Rigged variety herds it. Thought experiment. You're choosing a subscription. Small is cheap, large is pricey, medium is almost large but barely cheaper. Suddenly best value glows. Did the middle option exist to be purchased or to push? Resolution. Strip choices of company and inspect them solo. Price to value on its own merits, not by proximity. Ask for the absent option. The menu avoids monthly instead of annual, unbundled instead of stacked. When presenting choices, disclose your recommended criteria before showing tiers. When receiving, hide the labels and score the facts. Features, limits, exit penalties, and who benefits. Why it matters. Decoys tilt elections, warp budgets, and make mediocre deals feel royal. You can be guided by architecture you never saw. The decoy doesn't want your signature, it wants your inertia. Ask, which option would I pick if only two existed? This one, and walk away. What utility survives if the decoy disappears? Who labeled best value and what proof supports it? Sleep thought. True value survives solitude. Field practice. Invert the menu. Start by pricing the outcome you actually need, then search backward. In meetings, demand that every tier justify itself without comparison. When selling, refuse to plant straw tiers. Earn trust with transparent ladders. Keep a walk list of conditions that trigger leaving even the prettiest plan. Treat best value badges like perfume. Notice, then test if the scent matches the substance. Ask a neutral friend to choose blind and compare notes afterward. The placebo effect. Belief is chemistry wearing language. Placebo eases pain with meaning. Nocebo creates pain with warning. Paradox. Expectation is a medicine. Expectation is a poison. Thought experiment. Imagine two identical pills. One is framed as powerful relief. The other as likely to cause nausea and headaches. Same ingredients, different stories, different bodies. Where does your mind send your molecules? Resolution. Aim your expectancy responsibly. When you can, frame efforts as chances to learn and heal, not traps to suffer. Craft cues that support recovery. Consistent routines, trustworthy sources, specific improvement metrics, and gentle self-talk. Guard against fear scripts. Read side effects, then contextualize base rates and personal risk with professionals. Calibrate. Don't catastrophize. If someone tries to curse you with certainty, this will ruin you. Build a counter-suggestion. You believe, I'm building capacity, and my system learns. Why it matters. Exploiters sell hope, flavored like sugar, and doom flavored like authority. Both can move your blood pressure. Over time, chronically negative suggestions corrode sleep, immunity, and courage. Your inner narrator isn't neutral. Train it. Ask, whose voice narrates my symptoms? Do I trust their incentives? What future is my language rehearsing? Sleep thought. The body listens to the stories we repeat most. Choose yours like a prescription with refills. Field practice. Before procedures, ask clinicians what outcomes are most common and what behaviors help them. Write a tiny care script on your phone. Morning message, evening message. Short lines you believe. Track improvements with tangible measures so your hope earns receipts. Avoid doom scrolling when vulnerable. Herd your attention toward reliable counsel and quiet hobbies. When supporting others, offer realistic optimism. Name the difficulty. then the next doable step. Loss aversion. We hate losing more than we love winning. That tilt is loss aversion. Pain speaks in capital letters. Pleasure writes in lowercase. Paradox. Caution protects. Panic. Imprison. Thought experiment. Imagine two offers. One guarantees $100 gain. The other risks losing $100. Which one moved your stomach more? Now imagine a scammer waving a timer over your bank account. Which buttons would your fear press? Resolution. Price losses. Soberly. Pre-commit to rules before emotion spikes. Stop losses for trades. Walk-away numbers for negotiations. Cooling off periods for purchases. Translate potential losses into percentages, not raw dollars. The brain panics less at proportions. Build two-column futures. What you could lose by acting and what you could lose by freezing. Remember opportunity cost, the invisible losses you never feel because you never tried. Why it matters. Fear merchants monetize your aversion with red banners, countdowns, and fragile guarantees. Abusers threaten withdrawal to extract compliance. Politicians frame choices as catastrophic losses, so you'll accept whatever they're selling as the lesser pain. Ask, what would calm competence do here? If I zoom out a year, is this loss survivable? What am I forfeiting by standing still? Sleep thought. Not every risk is a cliff. Many are curbs you can step off and step back onto. Tonight. Field practice. Name baseline safety, savings, community, skills, and keep it healthy so experiments feel survivable. Turn doom into math, expected value over anecdotes, base rates over headlines. Use pilots, test decisions, small, before you scale. Journal survived losses to remind your nervous system that you're still here. If someone dangles love, money, or status with act or lose it, reply with your policy, not panic. The power of touch. Touch speaks a dialect older than words. A forearm brush, warm handshake, or guiding palm can tilt trust and compliance. Paradox. Contact can text. Contact can corral. Thought experiment. Recall a time a server, salesperson, or colleague touched your arm lightly. Did you tip more, agree quicker, disclose a little extra? Our skin has ears. Resolution. Notice the choreography. When unexpected touch appears, pause your automatic yes. Create a simple boundary phrase you can deliver. No touch. Thanks. Name what feels off before you justify it away. In professional settings, move communication to objects, documents, screens, pens. Keep bodies sovereign. If you rely on touch, replace it with clarity. Better questions, slower pace, explicit options. Reserve caring touch for relationships where consent and context are unmistakable. Why it matters. Con artists, recruiters, and power players use gentle touch to borrow intimacy and steer outcomes. A hand on your shoulder can pose as help while asserting hierarchy. Touch numbs resistance. Niceness isn't neutrality. Ask, did contact arrive when my doubt did? Whose hand benefits from guiding my steps? If I remove the touch, do I still feel compelled? Sleep. Thought. Affection and influence share hallways. Guard the doors. Permission includes refusing touch without apology, firmly. Field practice. Rehearse responses so your mouth speaks when your skin is surprised. Practice saying it out loud when alone. Fluency helps under pressure. Shift stance to widen space. Place an object between bodies. If you're a leader, set policies that protect comfort. Opt in rituals, not assumptions. Build warmth with words. Remember names. Keep promises. Thank sincere care. Decline strategic stroking. Your body is yours, including the microseconds before you answer. The foot in the mouth effect. Being pleasant can become a permission slip others cash for compliance. This effect exploits our drive for self-consistency. If you say you're doing great, your brain nudges you to act agreeable, so your behavior matches your words. Skilled persuaders open with warmth. Harvest a positive self-statement, then pivot to a request while your identity guard naps. Thought experiment. Remember a doorway chat that started with "How's your day?" and ended with you taking on a task you hadn't planned. Which sentence of yours made the yes feel inevitable? Resolution: separate courtesy from commitment. Answer feelings questions with honest, bounded language. I'm okay, and focused on X, so you don't auto-signal availability. Install a micro pause between pleasantry and reply. Breathe, scan capacity. Then answer. Use conditional language to keep agency. Not today, but Friday works. Or I can help for 10 minutes. Pre-commit to a default phrase when surprised by requests. Let me check and circle back. Why it matters. Manipulators escalate from small talk to soft traps, and your self-description becomes the rope. Sales scripts, interrogations, and pushy friends rely on you defending the image you just voiced. Ask, am I agreeing to preserve politeness or to serve priorities? Would I say yes if the opener had been neutral? Sleep thought. Kindness needs boundaries to stay kind to you. Field practice. Rehearse refusals you can deliver without apology. Track 1 week of surprise asks. Note which began with priming. Pair compliments with constraints. Appreciate you asking, I'm at bandwidth. If someone presses after a no, name the pressure. Second, ask. My answer is still no. When you want to help, set edges in the same breath as the yes scope, time, and exit. Polite doesn't mean porous warmth can coexist with a locked door. The endowment effect. We overvalue what we touch, because ownership paints with thicker ink than truth. Hold a mug and its price climbs. Test drive a car and the keys feel like a right. This bias binds us to objects, jobs, beliefs, relationships that no longer serve us, because surrender feels like loss, not logic. Thought experiment: list 3 things you've kept mainly because they're yours. An opinion, a project, a tie. If you discovered them today, would you still choose them? Resolution: appraise without the ownership fog. Run a replacement test. If I lost this, would I buy it back? Run an outsider test. Would a neutral friend pick this on merit? Name sunk costs out loud so they stop pretending to be investments. Install exit rules in advance. Criteria that trigger sale, sunset, or shift. Try a trial separation. Box it, hide it, and see if life shrinks. Schedule pruning. Keep, fix, donate. Why it matters. Manipulators hand you free trials, temporary roles, and starter beliefs, because once something feels yours, you defend it. Cults rename identity. Companies gift titles without power. Grifters put products in your hand so letting go feels rude. Ask, do I value this for utility or because my fingerprints are on it? Sleep thought. Possession is a storyteller. You owe it editing. Field practice. Before acquiring, write an exit plan and resale value after. Record real usage. When undecided, compute cost per hour of joy. Reprice the story. If a belief clings, argue the opposite for 10 minutes. If you feel lighter, loosen your grip. When someone binds you with swag, seats, or status, ask for equity, clarity, consent. If they balk, name the game and walk. Loyalty is beautiful when chosen, not glued. Psychological erosion, mind control. Control rarely looks like chains. It looks like narrowing choices, louder narratives, and a tired mind that stops arguing. Influencers isolate, bombard, reward, punish, and reframe until resistance feels unsafe and compliance feels self-authored. Your map shrinks, their voice expands. You call the cage a plan. Thought experiment. Recall a time a group identity, team, company, movement made you defend things you would have questioned alone. What did belonging purchase and what did it cost? Resolution: rebuild surface area for reality. Diversify inputs on purpose. 3 independent sources before conclusions. Create quiet counterspeech. 5 minutes daily arguing the other side. Log fatigue or fear that appears. Schedule solitude and sleep. As defensive tech, exhaustion is an obedience drug. Set non-negotiables. No loyalty oaths, no secret council bans, no decisions under countdowns. Keep a friend outside the frame who can sanity check your context. Why it matters. Manipulators don't change your mind, they change your environment until your mind changes itself. Echo chambers, love bombing, crisis theater, and scarcity clocks press you toward outcomes that feel chosen. Ask, if I left this room, feed, or chat for a month, would my conclusions weaken or strengthen? If dissent required no courage here, what would I say? Sleep, thought. Freedom begins with the option to be wrong aloud. Today, field practice. Run a fire drill from any system that demands constant presence. Step away for 72 hours and measure what collapses. When a message triggers urgency, label the tactic before content. If a leader forbids external review, escalate your distance, not your devotion. Track language drift. Do your words sound less like you and more like them? Relearn boredom, nature, and long-form reading. Depth widens map. When uncertain, follow the healthiest exit: transparency, reversibility, and choice over applause. The power of playing dumb. Feigning confusion lowers defenses, outsources effort, and lures truth. When someone appears harmless, others over-explain, take responsibility, and underestimate the listener's memory. Used well, it's an investigative tool. Used maliciously, it's camouflage for exploitation and blame dodging. Thought experiment. Recall a coworker who quietly didn't get it until decisions were made, then somehow steered outcomes. What did their softness purchase for them? Resolution. Disarm the tactic without losing kindness. Ask clarifying questions in writing so accountability firmly anchors to names and dates. Translate agreements into checklists with owners and deadlines. Use the teach-back loop. Walk me through what you'll do, in your words. If someone repeatedly forgets, switch channels. Email beats hallway, summary beats swirl. Set participation thresholds. If you influence, you also implement. Reward curiosity, not incompetence. Theater. Why it matters. Manipulators exploit your desire to seem patient or fair. Selective incompetence makes you the fixer. Performative confusion eats your time, then claims innocence when outcomes fail. I didn't know becomes a convenient solvent for standards. Ask, am I doing emotional labor so someone else can keep pretending? Would the facts change if they were as capable as I am assuming? Sleep thought. Compassion without clarity breeds resentment. Field practice. When requests arrive wrapped in helplessness, offer process instead of rescue templates, links, and first steps. Count repetitions. After 2, escalate to boundaries. Happy to advise, but you own delivery. In negotiation, refuse to fill silence with concessions. Let the confused party propose. In relationships, treat chronic misunderstanding as data, not drama. If you must play dumb for safety interviews, conflict de-escalation, set a private deadline to drop the mask. Mastery move. Make transparency the culture: decision logs, open docs, shared checklists, so fog has nowhere to hide and real effort meets the spotlight. The Bader-Meinhof frequency illusion. Learn a word, spot a car, hear a tune. Suddenly it's everywhere. It isn't fate, it's your attention retuned, and memory highlights hits while ignoring misses. Bad actors seed an idea, then surround you with echoes, until familiarity masquerades as truth and salience feels like significance. Thought experiment. Think of a headline you started noticing all the time. Was it truly surging, or did your feed, friends, and focus form mirrors? Resolution. Audit exposure and verify baselines. Before declaring a wave, count frequencies across independent sources and time windows. Use saved searches with date filters, not vibes. Track denominator data. If incidents triple from 1 to 3, the percentage is loud but reality small. Sandbox new terms, write a definition, then test it against credible glossaries. Build a skeptic's loop. Seed, notice, measure, compare, decide now. Why it matters. Manipulators don't need facts to feel common, they need repetition and placement. AstroTurf campaigns, bot swarms, and coordinated talking points manufacture ubiquity that your brain mistakes for proof. Marketers exploit mere exposure. Propagandists rename until labels stick. Ask, who benefits if I believe this is suddenly everywhere? Is salience coming from diversity of sources or a single amplifier? Sleep thought. Attention is a thermostat. Set it consciously or risk a fever. Field practice. When something pops up constantly, log sources for a week and color code them by independence. Measure first exposure date. Count repeats, then compare to baselines, reports, databases, archives, mute duplicate accounts, and cross-posters. Widen your intake with curated opposites. When sharing, add denominators and dates, or don't share. If an idea feels inevitable, put it on a 48-hour shelf. If urgency evaporates, it was suggestion, not signal. Make seems everywhere a prompt to investigate, not a permission slip to believe blindly. Mirror and matching. Mirroring is the social glue of conversation. Posture echoes posture, tempo meets tempo, words rhyme with words until rapport blooms. Used ethically, it's empathy. Used strategically, it's a leash. Mimicry lowers vigilance, floods you with familiarity, and tilts agreement before a single fact lands. Content artists, closers, and cult recruiters mirror first to borrow your trust, then lead once your nervous system labels them safe. Thought experiment. Recall a stranger who clicked instantly. Same slang, same laugh cadence, same head tilt. Did you disclose faster than usual? Resolution. Run the mismatch test. Change your cadence, cross the opposite leg. Introduce an unexpected topic. Note whether they fluidly adapt or scramble to resync. Convert vibes into verification. Ask for references, demos, receipts. Name the technique out loud if stakes are high. We're mirroring each other. Let's slow down and check assumptions. Build self-mirroring instead. Match your own values and timing so external pacing can't hijack you. Why it matters. Mirroring manufactures us without substance, after which leadership, sales, or seduction can glide past your filters. In toxic contexts, the mirror disappears as soon as dependence forms. The matching was a mask. Ask, do I like them or the reflection they're giving me? Would I agree at this speed without the glow of likeness? Sleep, thought, real resonance survives the pause. Imitation withers when you breathe. Field practice. Before decisions, take a 90-second solitude reset. Uncross, uncurl, breathe, In meetings, rotate who summarizes, so content beats charisma. If you sell, mirror lightly and disclose you're doing it. Transparency builds sturdier trust. If mirrored aggressively, plant factual stake, scope, price, timelines, and hold them when the tempo presses. Keep a cadence rule. Your calendar sets the pace, not the room. Practice liking people you disagree with and vetting people you adore. Both muscles keep you free, pacing and leading. First they match you, your fear, your anger, your exhaustion, then they pivot, and you follow, because the bridge already exists. That is pacing and leading. Align with present state, earn sync, steer to desired state. It feels respectful because it begins in your world. It becomes manipulative when steering serves theirs while claiming to serve yours. Thought experiment. Remember a pitch that started by naming your pain perfectly and ended with you accepting terms you hadn't scrutinized. Which sentence made the turn? Resolution. Separate validation from direction. When someone mirrors your state, thank the pacing, then interrogate the lead. What mechanism creates the promised change? What risks, what alternatives, what metrics, what exit? Install two-step consent. Agree to explore, not to adopt. Evaluate after a data pass, not during the resonance high. If you pace others, parents, managers, clinicians, disclose the arc. I'm going to reflect what I hear, then propose options. Feel free to stop me. Why it matters. Your emotions deserve naming. They do not deserve to be harnessed without your permission. Pacing is the velvet glove over urgency, ideology, or upsell. Once rapport anesthetizes, scrutiny sleep. Ask, do I want the destination they're driving toward, or do I just appreciate being seen at the start? What would I choose if the empathy stayed and the plan vanished? Sleep thought. Being understood is not the same as being well led. Field practice. When you feel deeply gotten, add friction. Sleep on it. Change rooms. Write a counter-solution. Require side-by-side comparisons, not monologues. In teams, label the move. We're in pacing. Now let's proof the leading and swap facilitators for the proof phase. Build a habit of asking for the control condition. What if we change nothing? Keep a tiny script. Thank you for mirroring. Now show me the math. Neuro-linguistic programming. NLP. NLP promises precision influence, mirror physiology, seed embedded commands, anchor emotions to cues, and watch compliance rise. Some claims are overblown, yet the toolbox of attention, framing, and state shifting can still steer minds, especially when tired, flattered, or rushed. Embedded suggestions. You might not realize it yet, but you're starting to sneak past argument because they aim at experience, not logic. Anchors pair a word, touch, or tone with relief until the cue later buys compliance. Thought experiment. Recall a conversation that felt hypnotic, rhythmic voice, sensory-rich language, future-pacing scenes where you were already saying yes. Did your skepticism shrink as imagery thickened? Resolution. Move from trance to test. Translate sensory fog into falsifiable claims. What will happen by when, at what cost, with what baseline. Call out linguistic magic tricks. That's a sensory description, not evidence, and reframe to specifics. Break anchors by changing context. Shift posture, tempo, topic. Name the feeling. Breathe. If you practice influence, commit to consent. Label techniques. Invite opt-out, and prefer co-created meaning to covert nudges. Why it matters. Covert persuasion erodes trust, even when outcomes help. Over time, dependency replaces agency. The voice that lulls you can later steer you into corners you wouldn't have chosen. Awake. Ask, am I feeling convinced or being guided to feel convinced? Without the cadence and imagery, do I still want this? Sleep thought. Vocabulary can cuddle you to sleep. Integrity lets you rest. Field practice. Keep a decoding pen handy while listening. Jot verbs, what's promised, and numbers, what's measurable. If an anchor is being built, label it. You touch my shoulder whenever you make a claim. Please don't. And watch sincerity rise or game stop. Build counter anchors that serve you. Breath phrase you trust to clear fog when you're the speaker. Swap tricks for transparency. Plain words, real trade-offs. Honest timelines. Subliminal cues. Most hidden message lore is myth or marketing, yet subtle cues still steer attention and mood. Flashes too quick to pass still nudge salience. Background music shifts pace, colors change risk appetite, repeated hints breed familiarity that your brain mistakes for truth. The line isn't magic, it's micro-nudging layered until choices lean. Casinos hide clocks, tune soundscapes, and choreograph paths. Political spots pair images and chords to weld feeling to flag. Thought experiment. Picture a store where you lingered for no reason. Lighting warm, aisles curving, soundtrack smooth. How much of your cart belonged to ambience? Resolution. Choose your inputs like you choose your diet. When stakes are high, money, votes, love, continues the channel to austere mode. Bright lights, neutral sound, one tab, plain fonts. Before big clicks, read in grayscale or read a view to strip sheen. Notice recurring symbols, colors, and catchphrases. Ask what they're training: urgency, nobility, threat, and verify the facts beneath the vibes. If you make media, declare the craft, list your cue choices and why. Let persuasion wear its name tag. Why it matters. Cues bypass debate and rent space in your reflexes. Over time, they tilt baselines. What feels normal, urgent, safe. In the wrong hands, they don't sell goods. They sell worldviews without receipts. Ask, would I decide the same way in silence with fluorescent honesty? Is this feeling information or instrumentation? Sleep thought. Quiet rooms return your compass. Field practice. Install friction rituals. Mute, pause, stand, water before purchase or share. Build a no music, no metrics zone for serious decision. When content feels overwhelmingly right, read the opposition's strongest case, then decide. Audit your space. Remove flashing widgets. Set phones to grayscale at night. Tuck platforms off the first page. If someone refuses, make their cues explicit. Refuse to rent them your instincts. The priming effect. What you encounter first colors what you perceive next. Words, images, temperatures, and tones plant silent starters that bias speed, mood, and judgment. Classical music nudges pricier wine. The word smash inflates crash speeds. Red ink chills risk-taking. Cursive menus make entrees taste fancier in your mind. Priming doesn't hypnotize, it tilts probability, and stacked tilts steer outcomes. Thought experiment. Recall entering a meeting after reading 3 emails about failure. Did your questions skew defensive? Now imagine entering after 3 notes of praise. Did your scope expand? Resolution. Prime yourself on purpose. Before negotiations, read fairness and clarity. Before creative work, scan play and possibility. Before tough feedback, review curiosity and kindness. Build neutralize, then decide habits. Summarize facts in bullet basics. Strip adjectives, restate the question. In groups, reveal criteria before exposure so the first flashy option can't set the frame. Rotate openers, sometimes numbers, sometimes stories, sometimes silence. Why it matters. Whoever chooses the first word often chooses the room's horizon. Propaganda primes threat to sell control. Scams prime urgency to sell speed. Toxic leaders prime shame to sell obedience. Ask, what did I see 10 minutes before this choice? Who placed it there? Would a different preface change my answer? Sleep. Thought. Protect your preface. It writes the first line of your night. Field practice. Curate threshold rituals, 2 sentences you read before money, health, or relationship decisions. Use calendar buffers labeled reset to avoid carrying spillover priming between tasks. In brainstorming, start with constraints and goals in writing. Only then sample examples. When consuming news, separate headlines from analysis. Read the plain report first, opinion after. If someone insists on controlling the opener room, music, visuals, vote for a pause and a second read. If denied, delay your yes until your mind is yours again. Suggestive language and hypnosis. Suggestions slip past argument when they ask your body to feel instead of your mind to think. Phrases like "you might begin to notice" bypass rebuttal, planting a direction your attention dutifully follows. Hypnotic pacing. Slow rhythm, sensory detail, future scenes where you already agree, lowers resistance and builds a yes ladder, one agreeable, micro step at a time. Teat experiment. Recall a sales chat that felt soothing. Were you given vivid images, soft commands inside compliments, and a choice framed as inevitable? Resolution. Translate velvet into verbs and numbers. Ask what precisely is proposed by whom, for whose benefit, with which measurable outcomes, under what risks, and by when. Treat trance as a cue to pause, stand, hydrate, and write. Break the spell by naming it. I notice the language is guiding sensations rather than evidence. Consent upgrade. If you influence, disclose techniques, invite opt-out, and let people decide awake. Why it matters. Covert suggestion can create real behavior while eroding agency. Repeated exposures tether comfort to the persuader, not the truth. Ask, if the cadence stopped and the music turned off, would I still agree? If the message arrived in plain text at noon, not midnight, would it survive? Sleep. Thought. Rest well when words are honest enough to keep you conscious. Field practice. Convert warm stories into decision tables. Strip adjectives, list costs, alternatives, reversibility. Rehearse a neutral refusal delivered while relaxed. I'll review and reply tomorrow. Track trigger phrases that tilt you. Trust, effortless, only, and build counters anchored to breath. If someone resists transparency about method, content, or timeline, downgrade intimacy, not judgment. Influence with consent, decline with kindness. Let autonomy be the loudest voice in the room. Creating a sense of urgency. Countdown clocks, expiring carts, crisis headlines. Urgency kidnaps attention, narrows options, and swaps deliberation for impulse. Scarcity plus time pressure activates loss aversion, and the fear of missing morphs into the fear of thinking. Thought experiment. Recall a purchase you regretted within 24 hours. If the timer had been removed, would you have chosen differently or spent less? Resolution. Install a pause layer between stimulus and spend. Default to a cooling off window. 10 breaths for small choices, 1 night for big ones. Replace ends in 5 minutes with independent baselines. Price history, alternatives, true need. Ask for the math behind the rush. What changes after the deadline besides my ability to review? If the answer is nothing material, decline the clock. Build urgency hygiene at work. Forbid last-minute approvals without prior scoping. Label fake deadlines. Reward early signalers, not heroic responders. Why it matters. Manipulators sell momentum because scrutiny is a solvent. When the room is on fire, the first voice offering a door owns the path, even if the door leads to a closet. Ask, would I choose this on Tuesday morning after coffee? Do I want the thing or do I want relief from the countdown? Sleep thought. Time you give yourself is time no one can take. Field practice. Set purchasing thresholds that trigger automatic delay and a written why. In teams, attach evidence to emergencies, separate true time sensitivity from poor planning. For news, batch consumption. Turn off breaking and read the update, not the alarm. When pressed, say, if it cannot withstand a pause, it cannot have my yes. Foot in the door technique. Small yeses pave highways for big ones because we crave consistencies with the story we tell about ourselves. First the harmless sticker, then the yard sign. First the free trial, then the yearly plan. First the meeting, then the commitment. Thought experiment. List 3 moments where a modest favor became a default obligation, which early acceptance made later resistance feel like betrayal of your identity. Resolution. Separate identity from behavior. Treat each request as new, context, capacity, cost, and consent reset to 0. Create micro yes boundaries, clear caps on scope, time, and renewal. I can help for 15 minutes today. After that, we'll reassess. Write the sunset when you write the start. If you used a free trial, schedule the cancel review the day you begin. For relationships and teams, favor pilot projects with explicit exit criteria over open-ended goodwill. Why it matters. Exploiters harvest your first kindness and invoice your self-concept forever. The technique is gentle, cumulative, and camouflaged as cooperation. By the time the ask is heavy, you're carrying your reputation too. Ask, am I agreeing to stay consistent, or is this choice valuable on its own merits? If my earlier self had said no, would I feel freer now? Sleep thought, a good heart still needs a gate. Field practice. Rehearse cheerful refusals that honor the past. Yes without renting the future. Glad that helped. I'm not the right person for ongoing support. Track serial askers. After 2 favors, propose structures, SLA, budget, rotation, or step back. Use written scopes and done definitions. Completion breaks the compliance escalator. Consistency is powerful when aimed. Aim it at your values, not someone else's funnel. Door in the face technique. Start with the moon, settle for the ladder. A ridiculous ask frames the real target as mercy. After you reject the extreme, the concession feels like fairness to reciprocate. Thought experiment. Remember a negotiation where an outrageous opener made the next number feel reasonable. What would your anchor have been without the first blast? Resolution. Prepare your own anchors before entering any ask arena. Decide acceptable ranges, walkaway points, and alternates. Write them down so theater cannot replace math. When faced with an absurd request, label it, decline cleanly, and re-anchor. That's outside my range. Here are the options I can consider. Separate gratitude for flexibility from agreement to terms. Don't reward performances with concessions, reward evidence. If you must counter, change dimensions, scope, timeline, risk sharing instead of only price. Why it matters. Manipulators manufacture relief to sell you the compromise they wanted all along. Coupled with time pressure, you exit believing you won when you simply walk to their mark. Ask, if the first ask had been absent, would this still look fair? Are we negotiating reality or reacting to theater? Sleep thought. Perspective is price. Keep yours. Field practice. Draft. No thank you. Scripts that pivot to your pre-written anchor. In teams, ban fake extremes in planning. Evaluate proposals against external benchmarks, not internal drama. When someone lowers demands dramatically, ask what changed in facts, not feelings. If nothing changed, treat the move as framing, not generosity. Key a post-mortem ritual after deals. Compare outcomes to your prep sheet, Celebrate aligned wins, not manipulated relief. Lowballing. Commitment first, cost later. Once you've mentally owned the prize, added fees feel like obstacles to dignity, not red flags. The tactic exploits endowment, sunk cost, and social pressure to keep nods rolling while the numbers climb. Thought experiment. Visualize the last time a special price grew after a manager checked the system. Did you argue with them, or with the version of you already driving home? Resolution. Refuse to finalize identity before facts. Insist on itemized, out-the-door numbers in writing before celebrating. Say, I'm not deciding until the total is final. Build delay as armor. Leave, reset, and decide elsewhere. If terms change after agreement, reset the negotiation entirely, or walk. Do not split the difference on deception. In jobs, demand offers in writing with duties, compared variable formulas and review dates. Avoid "we'll sort it later." Why? It matters. Lowballing turns your imagination into their leverage. As you picture the future, you defend it against reality. Shame and hope do the rest. Ask, would I accept this if it had been the opening number? If a stranger told me this story, what advice would I give them? Sleep thought. Dreams deserve honest math. Field practice. Pre-commit to walking away once. Tell a friend your rule and ask them to hold you to it. Carry a total cost checklist. Price, fees, maintenance, time, exit penalties, and check every box. When scope creeps, name it and trade. If we add X, we remove Y. In relationships and teams, watch for retroactive terms. Affection, labor, loyalty, added after your yes. Renegotiate in daylight or revoke consent. Clarity is kindness to both sides. Bandwagon effect manipulation. Crowds feel like truth because agreement masquerades as evidence. When enough people appear to believe, your brain trades curiosity for safety and climbs aboard. Viral counts. Rooms and enthusiasm compress uncertainty into conformity. Thought experiment. Recall a time you adopted an app, opinion, or outfit because everyone's on it now. Was the pull conviction or the ache of not belonging? Resolution. Build counters to performative consensus. Hide public metrics. Read substance before shares. Demand a diversity of sources and detect copy-paste cascades. In decisions, poll privately first. Discuss second, decide last. Run a lonely logic pass. If you had to defend this alone, what would your reasons be? Write them. Compare with the crowds. Why it matters. Bandwagons outsource your standards to whoever controls applause, bots, budgets, or bullies. Manufactured majorities sell junk, launder propaganda, and turn decent people into echoing amplifiers. Ask, who benefits if belief spreads without scrutiny? Whose reputation guarantees accuracy? What's my personal downside if this is wrong? Sleep thought. Belonging is sweetest when chosen after thinking, not instead of it. Field practice. Set default delays before joining trends. Require 2 independent validations and a counterargument you can steelman. Mute engagement bait and remove trending rails from your view. Reward the first dissent you see, even if you still choose the common path. Keep a contrarian ledger of times you refused the wave and later felt grateful. In teams, separate brainstorming from voting, forbid applause during pitches, capture votes anonymously, publish rationales. If a leader waves a crowd as proof, ask for baselines, error bars, and outgroup data. When the carriage feels inevitable, step off the curb, breathe, and price the ride. The cost of thinking is time. The cost of not thinking is paid with your future, creating a sense of scarcity. Scarcity flips your brain into hunting mode, making simple goods glow with survival urgency. Only 2 left. Ropes, drops, each shrinks your time horizon until relief, not fit, drives the choice. Thought experiment. Remember a purchase that felt thrilling, then unnecessary the next day. If the countdown hadn't blinked, would you have waited, compared, or walked? Resolution. Force abundance back into view. Inventory alternatives, including doing nothing. Replace last chance with best chance for me. Use price history. Compare total cost of ownership and schedule a cooling off window proportionate to risk. For relationships and jobs, translate exclusivity claims into data scope. support, exit terms before you attach. Create always enough later policies for money and attention. No same-day contracts, no midnight texts, no irreversible clicks after adrenaline. Why it matters. Engineered scarcity rents space in your nervous system, converting evaluation into compulsive capture. Scarcity sells fantasies and traps equally well. Both feel like opportunity until the bill arrives. Ask who profits if I rush, who loses if I wait. What would I advise a friend with my facts? Sleep thought. Nothing truly meant for you requires panic to claim it. Field practice. Design counter nudges. Browser grayscale. Are you sure? Prompts. And a shopping budget that resets monthly. Write exit costs. Next to entry prices. When a person, platform, or brand repeatedly weaponizes FOMO, move them off your screen. In Teams, decouple launches from hype. Reward forecast accuracy over frenzied spikes. For scarcity you cannot avoid. Seats, housing, medicine. Pair criteria beforehand and pre-commit to walk at defined lines. If someone balks at delay, call it diagnostic. If this can't survive a pause, it can't have my yes. Practice savoring sufficiency. The quieter you feel, the harder it is for false shortage to steer you. Exploiting the need for closure. Unanswered questions itch. Your mind hates open loops and will accept weak stories to stop the noise. Manipulators weaponize that itch with cliffhangers, vagueness and hints of hidden truth, disappearances that beg pursuit, teasers promising reveals, and deadlines for final answers. Thought experiment. Recall a situation where you chased explanation instead of evaluating fit. An ex's cryptic message, a manager's dangling promotion, a guru's half-revealed secret. Did relief outrun reality? Resolution. Prefer accuracy to closure. When a loop opens, write the facts you know, the hypotheses you're entertaining, and the decision you can make without more information. Set a timer for review and resume your life. Replace "why did this happen" with "what can I control next?" In negotiations, insist on complete documents. In relationships, request statements. In media, read full reports only. If a person habitually withholds, then drips. Classify the pattern, drop pursuit, and reclaim attention. Why it matters. Ambiguity-prone brains latch onto the first plausible answer and defend it like truth. Scammers and zealots fill that vacuum with certainties that cost you money, time, agency. Ask, am I seeking closure or clarity? Who benefits if I keep searching? What happens if I decide with the facts in hand and leave the rest undecided? Sleep thought. Peace is not the same as plot resolution. Field practice. Pre-write decision rubrics for recurring arenas, jobs, housing, partners, purchases, so you can act without narrative completion. Schedule loop hour weekly. List lingering mysteries. Solve 2. Forgive the rest. In Teams, ban suspense as management. Publish criteria and timelines. When faced with cryptic bait, answer with boundaries. If you have a clear offer, send it by Friday. Otherwise, I'm proceeding. Your attention is a currency. Refuse to pay interest on vague debts. Micromanipulation. The smallest nudges change the largest paths. A sigh at the right moment, a delayed reply, a raised eyebrow, and of course that lands like a leash. No orders, just micro-pressures that steer you toward compliance while preserving deniability. Thought experiment. Identify 3 choices you altered to avoid someone's tiny disapproval. Did you bend because of facts or because silence felt safer? Resolution. Surface the subtle. When your body tightens, pause and label the cue: tone, timing, posture, omission. Ask for explicit requests in writing. Translate vibes into verbs. What do you want by when, and what happens if I decline? Replace mind reading with boundary statements and tie your actions to agreements, not atmospheres. Build tolerance for other people's mild disappointment without rushing to repair it. Why it matters. Micromanipulation scales. 100 micro-tilts create life trajectories that serve someone else's comfort over your values. Abusers prefer whispers to commands. Systems prefer nudges to rules because you will police yourself. Ask, whose preferences are being honored here? What would change if I were not afraid of a frown? Sleep thought. A small no protects a big yes. Late field practice. Keep a tiny pressures log for a week. Note who, what, and how you responded. Choose one instance per day to resist. In teams, make expectations public, not telepathic. Forbid compare and sigh feedback. Require requests to include scope, effort, and trade-offs. In relationships, refuse to decode, invite plain speech, and accept that clarity may end fragile peace. Calibrate for culture, not control. Some norms are kindness, others are cages. When someone insists they never asked, answer gently, "You didn't, and I'm still not doing it." The less you fear awkward air, the more oxygen your choices will have. Sleep well on that. The Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks occupy disproportionate mental real estate. Your brain flags incompletion as danger and keeps pinging until closure arrives. Cliffhangers, dangling promotions, and open tabs harvest that vigilance, converting attention into compliance. Thought experiment. Which unresolved item haunted you most this month, and how much of that time produced value versus worry? Resolution. Close loops on purpose and quarantine the rest. Maintain a now, next, never list. Move anything stalled for 2 cycles to parked, with a date you'll revisit or delete. Write proper done definitions before you start, including stop rules and exit conditions. For media, finish chapters at calm beats, not hooks. For projects, end sessions by logging next actions so your mind can power down. Why it matters. Manipulators design perpetual incompleteness so you'll keep returning, paying with time, data, money, and peace. Open loops feel like love, purpose, destiny. They are often just funnels. Ask who profits if this stays unresolved. What would finished look like? What am I willing to leave unfinished on purpose? Sleep thought. Your mind sleeps best when you trust your list more than your anxiety. Field practice. Schedule a weekly closure hour to cancel, conclude, or consciously pause 10 items. Archive stale threads. Unsubscribe from teasers, batch notifications. In teams, forbid suspense as a tactic. Publish criteria, timelines, owners, and cutoffs. If someone withholds resolution to keep you engaged, name it and step back. When you cannot finish, simulate closure. Write a brief, file it, and set a revisit date. Treat the loop as contained. Replace endless scrolling with finite containers. Pages, minutes, episodes. Honor completed rest as a task. Remember, a loop closed badly still frees more life than a loop kept perfect, forever open. Protect your evening and breath. Sleep deep. The Pygmalion effect. Expectations sculpt performance. Praise or doubt becomes an environment that learners breathe. Subtle cues, extra patience, warmer eye contact, richer feedback, lift some while others receive the crumbs of belief. Thought experiment. Recall a time someone assumed greatness or mediocrity of you. How did your behavior move toward that forecast? Resolution. Audit expectations, both received and given. When you sense a ceiling, name it, and ask for criteria, not vibes. What standard defines excellent here? What evidence will we accept? Build your own expectation scaffolds, rituals, metrics, inputs you control. Give yourself and others high, specific, attainable aims with safety for iteration. Praise efforts, strategy, and improvement. Pair belief with training and time. Why it matters. Weaponized expectations become cages. Low belief stunts growth and keeps gatekeepers comfortable. Conversely, empty hype breeds burnout and shame. Ask, whose prophecy am I performing? Who benefits from me shrinking? What would change if I acted as though success were assumed and resourced? Sleep thought. Speak to yourself like a trusted coach who knows the route and the weather. Field practice. Replace labels with ladders, from not a numbers person to learning forecasting. Week 3. In teams, publish rubrics and rotate opportunities. Measure by progress and impact, not charisma. If you lead, broadcast faith through access, mentorships, stretch work, patient reviews. If you are led, protect your altitude with peer circles that expect more than your current plotline. When someone frames you small, ask for the data, Offer a plan and deliver increments until the frame breaks. Hedge against both curses and crowns by keeping a private scoreboard of inputs under your control. Confidence compounded by evidence is sturdier than any myth. Build that bank, also track rest and recovery as productive inputs to sustain growth. Protect mornings fiercely, daily. Reframing failure. Failure is raw data, but manipulators dye it with shame to color your identity. Missed metrics become moral verdicts. Experiments become proof you can't. Thought experiment. Surface one stumble you've been hiding. If a friend presented the same facts, would you judge them or help them iterate? Resolution. Reclaim the frame. Write a failure autopsy with 3 columns: controllables, uncontrollables, lessons. Translate each lesson into a next input you can test. Separate responsibility from self-worth in language. Change "I failed" to the approach under-delivered. Replace humiliation rituals with review rituals. Shorter cycles, visible metrics, kinder debriefs. Why it matters. Shame traps keep you compliant, afraid to try, dependent on approval, allergic to risk, while others profit from your hesitation. Healthy reframing isn't spin, it is accurate context plus better plans. Ask, who gains if I stay small? What assumptions broke? What would a scientist do next? Sleep thought. Your value predates outcomes. Your craft improves because you practice, not because you punish. Field practice. Pre-write Plan B and Plan C for important moves, so setbacks become routes, not walls. In teams, normalize post-mortems that end with commitments and owners, not culprits. Track attempts per week alongside wins. If someone keeps weaponizing your errors, revoke their access to your inner voice, and if possible, your calendar. Build communities that celebrate corrected beliefs and retired tactics. Remember that quitting a bad course is not failure. Staying appease a false narrative is. Put failure on a clock. Reflect, decide, act, rest. Repeat until the facts change, and they will if you keep learning with compassion. Archive praise and criticism with equal distance, then return to objective measures you trust. Collect exemplars of famous missteps turned breakthroughs to inoculate against perfectionism. Schedule small, fearless trials weekly. Deliberately. The halo effect. One bright trait casts a glow that blinds attractiveness, confidence, or status, makes unrelated qualities look better than they are. We confuse charisma with competence and polish with proof. Thought experiment. Picture the last time you excused poor facts because a person or product felt premium. What did the shine hide? Resolution. Split signal from surface. Before judging, define criteria that can survive radio silence. Evidence of outcomes, replicable methods, references outside the subject circle. In conversations, write notes that separate style cues from content claims. Score decisions twice, once with impressions visible, once reading only the facts. Average or throw out the dazzled pass. Why it matters. Predators rent halos cheaply. Uniforms, titles, and stage generosity persuade faster than substance. Your guard must be procedural, not vibes. Ask, if a shy person said the same words, would I agree? If this came in plain packaging, would I pay? Sleep thought. The right ideas stay right when spoken quietly. Field practice. Strip brand names while comparing. Read blind submissions. Schedule due diligence after first meetings, not during. In teams, rotate presenters so polish doesn't monopolize credit. Reward boring excellence, a clean dataset, a patient mentor, a bug report that prevents disaster. When a halo is earned, anchor it to behavior you can verify and time-bound. When it is borrowed, return it immediately. If you catch yourself basking, seek a shadow, one counterexample, one skeptic you trust, one rival product to test. Guard against reverse halos too. Awkward doesn't mean wrong. Keep your standards steady across gloss, glare, and gloom so the work, not the spotlight, decides. Practice monotone reading of claims before hearing the pitch, then revisit your feelings after. Use checklists, not hunches, when stakes are high and optics are loud. All time constraints. Ticking clocks. Shrink your prefrontal cortex's runway. You swap analysis for relief and accept terms you'd reject with sunlight. Offer ends in 5 minutes. Decision by close of day. Act now. Each compresses consideration into panic. Thought experiment. Remember a yes you regret because the timer was louder than your values. Resolution. Install temporal armor. Default to no decisions under adrenaline. Use pause phrases. I don't decide on the spot. Send it in writing. Circle back tomorrow. Pre-commit with allies to honor these rules when pressure arrives. Build buffers into budgets and calendars so delay doesn't equal disaster. Treat emergency language as a verification trigger, not a compliance cue. Why it matters. Urgency theater is the con artist's favorite stage. When time narrows, power concentrates in whoever holds the clock. Ask, who benefits if I rush? What vanishes if I wait? What would future me thank me for? Sleep thought. Time you reclaim from false urgency becomes energy you can invest. Field practice. Set decision SLAs for yourself. Hours for small buys, days for contracts, weeks for moves. Automate cooling off periods above $1 threshold. In teams, separate deadlines from theatrics. Publish the work-back plan and escalate early. If partners impose impossible clocks, counter with criteria. We'll decide when risks are quantified and options compared. When a countdown appears on a screen, mute the tab. Evaluate with written criteria. Then close the window entirely if the case fails without the timer. View time the honest way, with clarity, not excuses. Practice saying it kindly, firmly, and without a trailing justification. Silence beats stalling apologies, and when real urgency hits, safety outages, care, use checklists. You rehearsed on calm days, so speed amplifies judgment instead of replacing it. The time you keep is the mind you keep. The contrast principle. Nothing is expensive, big, or extreme in isolation. Perception is a relative game. Show a terrible option first, and the merely bad feels merciful. Thought experiment. Recall a negotiation where an outrageous anchor made the compromise look wise. Would you have chosen it without the decoy? Resolution. Normalize absolute evaluation. Make single option decisions provisional and revisit after comparing at least 2 credible alternatives. Anchor to principles, not packaging. Price against needs, not neighbors. Write your red lines before entering the room and keep them visible. Compare options to a quiet baseline. Do nothing, buy later, build yourself. Swap display order when shopping so you read mid-range items before the flagship. In conversations, ask for the truth set. Best case, base case, worst case. Why it matters. Manipulators stage contrasts to warp fairness. If the frame is rigged, your choice is guided even while it feels free. Ask, who arranged the lineup? What's missing from the slate? Which option wins if we reorder the deck? Sleep thought. Wisdom refuses to grade on a curve that someone else drew. Field practice. When presented with 3 options, strike the prettiest decoy, then recompute. Run your own cost per unit time, risk, and regret. In teams, review proposals blind and in random order. Insert a baseline control in every comparison. Teach stakeholders to spot good next to awful theater. When people improve after mistreating you, clock the trick. They're not kind. You're just relieved. Hold the original standard. Rehearse lines that defend it. Better than bad isn't good. We'll pass until the real fit shows. This is still a no. Finally, practice gratitude without downgrading judgment. You can be thankful for progress and still decline a poisoned bargain. That balance keeps your compass yours. The IKEA effect. The IKEA effect makes effort feel like value. Once you've built it, endured for it, or bled for it, your mind inflates its worth and defends it from criticism. Manipulators love this bias. They hand you projects, rituals, or hoops, then watch attachment grow until walking away feels like tearing out a piece of yourself. Thought experiment. Recall a task you overprotected because you'd invested weekends and pride. If someone else had delivered the same result without your sweat, would you have rated it as highly? Resolution. Separate labor from merit. Before starting, define success in external terms. Outcomes, impact, fit with values, and decide in advance what conditions end the effort. During, track inputs and results on different lines, so sunk time doesn't masquerade as progress. Invite fresh eyes to audit what you've made. Ask them to price it as if they built nothing. Why it matters. The IKEA effect keeps people trapped in bad jobs, stale beliefs, and one-sided relationships, because the currency already spent feels sacred. Grifters exploit this by assigning character-building tasks, hazing disguised as bonding, and endless ownership initiatives that transfer cost to you and profits to them. Ask, if I hadn't built this, would I fight to keep it? If I stopped now, what would I really lose? Quality or only ego? Sleep thought. Love your craft, not your sunk costs. Field practice, pre-write stop rules and review dates, budget endings like you budget start. In teams, pilot in small chunks, price the outcome not the hours, rotate owners and kill darlings when data demand it. In life, notice when effort makes you stubborn. Say past me paid the tuition, present me can choose differently. Effort is a teacher, not a jailer. Let it graduate you when the lesson is complete. Keep outcomes honest, options open, exit ready. The decoy effect. The decoy effect rigs your choices by adding a third option designed to lose, not to win, so that one specific pick looks irresistibly smart. Small, $3. Medium, $6.50. Large, $7. The medium is bait, the large is the target, and you feel like a savvy strategist while the funnel does its work. Thought experiment. Scan your subscriptions and recent purchases. Where did an oddly priced middle sibling shepherd you? Would you have chosen the same plan without that ghost competitor? Resolution. Rebuild comparisons from scratch. Hide the lineup labels, list your criteria first, and score each option independently against needs, total cost, risk, reversibility, and support. Delete any alternative that no real person should pick. If removing it flips your preference, you are being steered. Why it matters. Decoys shape wallets, votes, and values. They sanitize bad policies by placing them beside worse ones. They normalize predatory terms by contrasting them with absurdity. They make compromise feel virtuous when nothing meets your standards. Ask, who designed these tiers? What's missing? What would I do if only one option existed? Sleep thought. The best choice survives when imposters leave the stage. Field practice, randomize evaluation order, compare against a do-nothing baseline and anchor to outcomes over optics. In teams, demand a real spectrum, minimum viable, recommended, premium with trade-offs explained in plain numbers. Require a delete the decoy sanity check before sign-off. In life, beware relationships, roles, and deals that present an outrageous alternative, so the merely bad feels acceptable. If you catch the decoy, say out loud, "This is theater," then pick with math, not momentum. Keep your criteria visible. When the stagecraft fades, good choices don't need a prop. Practice pausing when price ladders appear. Draft your own ladder instead. If no option clears your bar, choose none and redirect resources toward wins elsewhere. Placebo and nocebo. The placebo effect proves belief can change biology. Its darker twin, the nocebo, shows expectation can manufacture harm. When authority, ritual, and repetition suggest relief, your brain releases real chemistry. When they warn of danger, your body obliges with symptoms. Manipulators exploit this with white coats, confident tones, sacred routines, and side effect scripts that program experience. Thought experiment. Track a time you felt better right after an impressive but empty intervention. Fancy packaging, vague wellness claims, placebo updates. Did the story do the lifting? Resolution. Ground your expectations, demand mechanisms, data, dosages, and credible replication before investing belief. Name the suggestive theater, ambient music, testimonials, lab imagery so it loses hypnosis. When legitimate treatments are needed, use clear protocols and informed consent. Then hold your mind steady by normalizing benign sensations and logging actual outcomes. Why it matters. Belief is a force multiplier. It can amplify healing, mask failure, or conjure suffering on cue. Scammers sell hope and harvest nocebo, panic, to keep you buying the antidote to their whispers. Ask, who benefits from my expectations? What would change if I learned this secretly did nothing? How will I measure effects beyond feelings? Sleep thought. Let evidence tune hope, not the other way around. Field practice. Separate ritual from result. Try A/B weeks. Blind yourself when possible, and recruit a skeptical buddy to keep notes. In teams, outlaw miracle language. Publish negative results, and reward deprescribing when data support it. In life, curate your inputs. Mute catastrophizers. Avoid Googling vague symptoms at midnight, and treat dramatic predictions like spells you can decline. Use belief ethically. Pair it with proven methods, never as a substitute. Your mind is powerful. Aim it with care, or someone else will. Build placebo on purpose, for sleep and calm, rituals you choose, anchored to practices that genuinely help, every night. Loss aversion. Loss aversion makes losses loom larger than equivalent gains. Pain of -1 feels roughly twice the joy of +1. Manipulators engineer this asymmetry to freeze you in bad deals, chase sunk costs, and panic buy safety. Thought experiment. Recall a choice you made primarily to avoid losing status, money, or face. If the numbers flipped to gains, would you have acted as fast? Resolution. Price losses and gains on the same scale. Pre-commit to rules that cap downside, position sizes, time boxes, maximum concessions, and pair every risk with a written exit. Turn ambiguous dread into explicit figures, then compare expected value, not adrenaline. Practice reverse FOMO. List what you'd gain by walking away, time, options, peace, and count it honestly. Why it matters. Fear of loss makes you easy to herd. It powers scams, bubbles, toxic loyalties, and outrage cycles that monetize your vigilance. Ask who profits. If I'm terrified to lose, what is the smallest safe experiment I can run? What would calm, future me recommend? Sleep thought. The thing you refuse to release is often the tollkeeper at the bridge you need to cross. Field practice. Rehearse letting go. Sell one unneeded item weekly, decline one baited offer, unfollow one anxiety engine. In teams, evaluate stop losses alongside goals, celebrate prevented losses and clean exits as wins. In negotiations, trade concessions for certainty, not noise. Refuse terms weaponed with irreversible threats and vanishing windows. For relationships and careers, define deal breakers early and memorialize them. When crossed, act swiftly and kindly. Shift identity from the one who never loses to the one who relocates toward better bets. Your courage isn't measured by clinging, it is measured by the quality of the futures you keep choosing. When fear screams, act now. Breathe, count to 60, compute the expected value, and choose with math rather than momentum. Calmly. The power of touch. Touch is primal persuasion. A warm handshake, a light forearm tap, a guiding palm on a shoulder, and minds soften. Trust swells. Compliance rises. Research shows tiny contacts can boost tips, credibility, and yes rates. Levers so subtle you seldom notice the nudge. Manipulators use touch to borrow intimacy, impose hierarchy, and steer decisions while appearing friendly. Thought experiment. Replay a moment you agreed faster after a casual touch. Would the answer be the same by phone? Resolution. Set boundaries in advance. Decide where, when, and by whom. Touch is welcome. Name it out loud when it crosses the line. Please don't touch me. Words are enough. In negotiations, keep hands visible. Avoid being physically steered and take breaks to reset physiology. If you rely on touch ethically, healthcare, coaching, pair it with explicit consent and transparent purpose. Why it matters. Touch bypasses analysis. It signals care or dominance before language loads. Bad actors exploit that half-second head start. Ask, is this contact for my comfort or their control? Does the timing align with my interests or their agenda? Sleep thought. You are allowed to guard your space without explanation. Field practice. Wear layers or carry something in hand when entering high-pressure sales zones. It reduces incidental contact. Sit at angles that shrink reach. Choose chairs over couches and position yourself with clear exits. In teams, codify touch norms. Praise consent as loudly as outcomes. In life, Teach kids and selves that polite can include the word no. If touch unsets you, step back, breathe out slow, and answer after your pulse steadies. Respectful touch heals, strategic touch sells, coercive touch controls. Know which you're feeling and respond accordingly. Remember, persuasion that disappears without touch was yours. Persuasion that collapses without touch was theirs. Keep agency in your hands, not under someone else's palm. Always. Foot in the mouth effect. The foot in the mouth effect turns your own pleasant words into a leash. A stranger asks, "How are you today?" You say, "Good," and moments later you're oddly more likely to agree to a request because humans crave consistency between self-description and behavior. Manipulators stack small talk, compliments, and warmth to preload yes. Thought experiment. Recall a time you felt obligated after announcing you were great, helpful, or generous. Would you have complied if you'd admitted you were busy and protective of your time? Resolution. Decouple courtesy from commitment. Answer authentically and neutrally. I'm managing what's up. Then evaluate requests by criteria, not by the mood you just projected. Create a default buffer phrase. Let me check and get back to you, and actually check. Why it matters. This tactic is everywhere. Street fundraising, sales intros, interrogation openings, even manipulative friendships that harvest your identity statements to trap your actions. Ask, would I still say yes if I had said nothing about myself first? Sleep thought, kindness can travel without cargo. You owe nothing extra because you smiled. Field practice. Script 3, honest, low commitment greetings. Carry them until they're automatic. Pair compliments with boundaries. Appreciate you asking, I can't take that on. In teams, forbid. Forced cheer as a performance metric. Measure outcomes, not bubbly prefaces. In life, notice when someone requotes your virtues. You care so much. Right before the ask, translate it to prepare to evaluate. Protect your future time as fiercely as your present mood. Consistency should follow values, not traps. If you struggle to refuse after positive small talk, switch channels, move from hallway to email, from call to calendar link, from feeling to written criteria. Mode shifting cools the impulse to perform your earlier words and returns you to the planner who decides deliberately. Your smile is not a signature. Keep it way, always. The endowment effect. The endowment effect makes ownership inflate value. Once something feels like mine, I overprice it, overprotect it, and overlook better alternatives. Salespeople hand you objects, trials, and test drives to stitch attachment before price appears. Manipulators foster roles you'll guard even as they shrink you. Thought experiment. List 3 items, beliefs, or responsibilities you defend mainly because they're yours. If you started today, would you still choose them? Resolution. Create distance. Price as if you were buying from a stranger. Borrow a friend's valuation. Run a sell keep coin toss and notice your instant reaction. Set pre-commitments. End dates for trials. Return windows on calendars and quarterly inventory days to trade possessions and positions for options and oxygen. Why it matters. Clinging crowds out growth. Abusers exploit identity ownership. My job, my community, my person, to make leaving feel like theft rather than choice. Ask, if I lost this tomorrow, what would I truly lose? Utility, meaning, or only familiarity? Sleep thought, your worth is not stored in your drawer, title, or couple. Field practice, rotate favorites, sell one thing before buying another, and schedule donation rituals so release becomes normal. In teams, separate individuals from roles, cross-train, rotate leads, sunset projects without funerals. In life, map what is mine onto a timeline. Many treasures were only meant to be temporary. Thank them, then let go. When something must stay, choose it again on purpose, at today's price, with eyes open. Ownership should serve you, not the other way around. If separation feels impossible, simulate absence, box it for 30 days, delegate the task for 2 cycles, or mute the group for a week. Notice relief, boredom, or craving. Treat that signal as data, not destiny. Return only what earns its place, and release the rest with gratitude rather than guilt. Repeat until lightness feels normal. Again, mind control by erosion. Mind control rarely looks magical. It feels like erosion. Identities wear down under isolation, schedule, ritual exhaustion, and selective reward until borrowed beliefs feel self-made. The Stanford prison simulation showed ordinary people absorbing roles quickly, but everyday systems do this slowly, long hours, moving goalposts and narratives that promise safety if you stop asking questions. Thought experiment. Map a time your opinions hardened after your world narrowed. Which inputs disappeared? Which phrases you repeat weren't originally yours? Resolution. Diversify reality. Build a diet of dissent, smart critics, rival data, rotating mentors, and schedule solitude that isn't filled with the group's voice. Keep a private notebook of first principles and red lines, review them monthly, and mark each violation you rationalized. Why it matters. Captured minds defend their cages and recruit others, convinced it's love, duty, or enlightenment. Ask, if this belief were wrong, who would I disappoint? Who benefits if I never test it? Sleep, thought. Loyalty without latitude is a leash. Field practice, institute sabbaticals from news feeds, communities and workplaces, return by choice with clearer eyes. In teams, separate belonging from agreement, reward respectful dissent, and require pre-mortems before big bets. Teach exits alongside missions. In life, hold identities lightly. Parent, citizen, believer, skeptic. Let each breathe without totalizing the rest. If someone insists you're only safe inside their story, that story is a trap. Keep keys in your own pocket. Practice uncertainty reps. Choose one cherished assumption per month and try to falsify it kindly. Journal how it survives or fails and keep the receipt. Switch contexts deliberately. Different city, discipline, or friend group for a weekend. Watch which parts of you stay solid outside the script. Remember, empowerment isn't thinking one thing forever. It's being able to think anew without fear of abandonment. Freedom grows where flexibility meets boundaries you set. Start now. The power of playing dumb. Playing dumb is strategic camouflage. Appear harmless, underinformed, or clumsy, and people overexpose, overhelp, and overlook you. Until it's too late. Detectives, con artists, and manipulators use selective incompetence to dodge tasks, extract intel, and shift blame. Thought experiment. Recall a time someone's confusion consumed your energy while advancing their goals. Did clarity ever arrive? Resolution. Measure outcomes, not personas. Require written confirmations, deadlines, and ownership assignments, so oops stops being currency. If confusion persists, change the medium, document steps, record calls, or CC a neutral third party. Feigned fog hates light. Why it matters. The false fool exhausts you and reframes you as the unreasonable one for demanding basics. Ask, who gains from incompetence here? What would happen if I stopped rescuing? Sleep, thought. Empathy without boundaries bleeds into self-betrayal. Field practice. Preface, help with limits. Happy to explain once, next time use the guide. In teams, rotate glue work, track invisible labor, and promote by contribution, not charm. In life, refuse to argue with performative misunderstanding. Set one clear expectation, state the consequence, and follow through calmly. If you ever use this tactic, notice the temptation and choose candor instead. Short-term cover breeds long-term chaos. Competence is quiet power. Aim to build it, protect it, and partner only with those who respect it. Practical tells, they're brilliant elsewhere but baffled here. They forget in one direction, they recover instantly when stakes flip in their favor. Countermeasures. Move decisions into systems, checklists, tickets, dashboards. So progress is visible and excuses are boring. Use teach back after explaining. Ask them to summarize steps in writing. Gaps reveal intent faster than apologies. Reserve your generosity for learners, not leeches. Discern humility from hustle. Remember, protecting your bandwidth is not cruelty. It is stewardship of the work only you can do. Say less, require more. Rest, protect time. Baader-Meinhof, frequency illusion. The Baader-Meinhof frequency illusion makes new ideas feel ubiquitous after you first notice them. Two cognitive engines drive it: selective attention, you spot what you're primed for, and confirmation bias, you remember hits, forget misses. Manipulators seed a concept, then flood channels so your tuned brain discovers it everywhere and mistakes salience for truth. Thought experiment. Think of a phrase you started hearing suddenly. Track how many times you actually encounter it today versus how many you expect. Resolution. Rate prevalence with logs, not vibes. Keep a simple tally for a week. Compare to baselines from before the seed. Change inputs deliberately. Different sources, different circles to see if the pattern survives. Why it matters. Frequency illusions inflate fads, fabricate mandates, and legitimize propaganda. Once everyone knows, resistance feels foolish and lonely. Ask, who benefits if this appears common? What would I believe if exposure dropped by half? Sleep thought, ubiquity is not authority. Repetition is not proof. Field practice. Diversify information diets, mute amplification farms, and demand denominator data. How many out of how many? In teams, quarantine shiny trends until validated by need and evidence. Pilot quietly, measure and scale on signal rather than noise. In life, remember your attention is an algorithm. Train it kindly. When you catch the illusion whisper pattern isn't plot, then choose what deserves your gaze, not what hijacked it. If you market, use this power ethically, pair early exposure with honest substance, publish real numbers, and invite rebuttal. If you consume, practice first noticed fasting, pause engagement for 48 hours after a concept spikes, return with cooler blood and better boundaries, guard sleep by closing the loop, write the idea down, schedule review later, and let your brain stand down for the night. What you repeat, you reinforce. Choose repetitions that make you freer, each day deliberate. Priming effects. The priming effect is the silent warm-up act. Before decisions, a whisper to your subconscious that tilts what you notice, how you judge, and the actions you choose. Elegant fonts make prices feel reasonable. Red cues raise caution. Familiar phrases soften skepticism. Manipulators stack cues, music, lighting, colors, framing, repetition. So your mind is already leaning toward their outcome before facts arrive. Thought experiment. Recall a time ambience or wording shifted your purchase, vote or mood. Would you decide the same in plain text, neutral light, silence? Resolution. Separate signal from staging. State criteria first. Evaluate in writing, and where possible, strip the theater, mute sound, change fonts, copy text to a blank note, view monochrome. When stakes are high, run an A/B review once with all packaging, once with cues removed, then compare choices, why it matters. Priming drives courts, clinics, campaigns, and commerce. It can tilt testimony, diagnosis, policy support, and your late-night cart. Ask, which cues do I feel? Which do I only see later? And who gains if my guard drops in this room? Sleep thought. You can enjoy atmosphere without letting it author your choices. Field practice. Redesign your default environments, warm light for winding down, plain interfaces for money moves, noise off for negotiations. Before difficult conversations, choose calm cues deliberately. Before buying, switch to grayscale. In teams, predefine decision rubrics, randomize presentation order, and reveal core data before brand varnish. Label priming openly, music off for pricing, names hidden for hiring, colors neutral for risk. In life, notice words that sneak verdicts, smashed versus bumped, right-sizing versus layoffs, and translate them to neutral terms before you decide. If you must prime, do it ethically. Anchor rest to soothing rituals, focus to a tidy desk, safety to factual clarity. Own your cues, or someone else will. Choose with care. Suggestive language and hypnosis. Suggestive language slides past argument and aims at compliance. Hypnosis, broadly defined, lowers defenses so suggestions stick. Neither requires swinging watches. It is tone, timing, cadence, presuppositions, embedded commands, and choice frames that assume consent. When you sign here, you'll feel relieved. Smuggles 2 acts, signing and relief. Would you like the steak or the seafood special? Erases the option to decline. Thought experiment. Replay a conversation where you agreed without quite knowing why. Underline the assumptions embedded in each sentence. Resolution. Surface the frame and reassert agency. Answer questions by reframing scope. I'm deciding whether to order at all and convert fuzzy invitations into explicit offers you can evaluate. When you hear presuppositions, split them. Address emotion, question action, replace trancy cadence with pauses, notes and written follow-ups. Why it matters: courtroom questioning, sales scripts, cult recruitment, and some coaching exploit suggestion to manufacture consent that looks voluntary. Ask, what is being assumed, what is being rushed, and what changes if I add no as a valid answer. Sleep thought: your attention is sovereign. Wherever it goes by default, your choices follow. Field practice: develop buffer phrases. Send it in writing: I'll sleep on this, not today, and deploy them before content hooks you. Audit your own language. Do you imply inevitability when you mean invitation? Do you borrow authority you have not earned? In teams, ban false dichotomies and hypnotic fluff. State decisions, risks, and reversibility in clear words. If you use suggestion ethically, tie it to well-being you can verify. Breathe slower, unclench jaw, lower shoulders, notice support under you. For persuasion, favor transparency over trance. Reasons, options, and time to think. If someone resists, respect it. Consent that requires fog isn't consent. Keep your voice steady, your pace human, and your questions honest. The clearest spell you can